Hello and welcome back, and that is right, today we're returning to the subject of physical KVMs, devices that we tap into to assume control of another device remotely anywhere in the world or just on the local area network. And today we want to talk about the new device rolling out relatively soon from the brand Gl.iNet. Again, a brand that has really attacked the subject of KVMs the last 1 to 2 years. Today we want to talk about the Comet X, and this is arguably the first one they've ever rolled out that very specifically targets rack mount deployments, but also very specifically is targeting an overseer KVM. Ultimately, rather than one KVM that is managing one device, this is a KVM overseer device that's managing multiple devices with multiple inputs, allowing you to control up to 4 devices from a single point of access. Today we're going to talk about the specifications, what it can do, a few things that it can't do, and ultimately why I think this might be one of the most interesting KVM devices that I've seen from this brand, or just generally across KVMs for quite a while. Also, real quick, couple of points of contention. Right now, it is one of the rare 4 or 5 days of the year here in the UK where it actually is quite hot weather. Consequently, the fans on a server array just out of shot. I've played around best I can, but I can't remove that noise. I'm going to try my damnedest in the post to get rid of it, but you may hear that light hum throughout the course of the video. Secondly, I've got a whole guide video coming up soon across KVMs, the features you need to look for to get it right the first time. And annoyingly, this KVM isn't featured. It's not available to buy yet, but this is not going to be in that video. I might try and splice it in there, but just to keep you aware. So first up, let's return to that point I mentioned earlier about this being rack ready. Some of these you can already install in racks. Indeed, the PoE device, I would argue, was one of their earliest rack mount specific devices. It didn't have HDMI in and out, but it was at the very least PoE. One of the cornerstone things you look for really in a rack mounted KVM device to manage another server that is headless without a monitor, a keyboard or a mouse or anything like that. However, this one arrives with brackets for 10-inch and 19-inch racks included with the kit. Now again, as mentioned, that's not unusual. These could be deployed, but you had to use 3D printing to get it done. They weren't really included with the kits. There were accessory kits you could buy, but this is the first time it is very specifically being targeted towards that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to deploy it in a rack, but it looks like it is obviously geared towards that, where you're going to have multiple server arrays there that you may need to for troubleshooting or just day-to-day utilization, KVM to get an HDMI output, maybe go into the BIOS and stuff like that. Now, again, as mentioned, this supports up to 4 devices. There's 4 HDMI in and 1 HDMI out. That's crucial because, again, trying to do HDMI in and out on all of these would require multiple monitors. And I know there are utilizations and deployments that may be desirable, but ultimately what you want here is a device here managing multiple servers with a monitor for you to output and flick between them when you need to. Another thing that's really interesting is that alongside them all having the HDMI input and 4 USB Type-C input and USB Type-A inputs for each of the individual servers, allowing you to assume KVM control remotely and to add USB accessories like the fingerbot, like the ATX card. There is also a dedicated collection of USB ports local for a keyboard and mouse local. What does that mean? This means that unlike these devices, where you needed to have this connected to an existing client PC, or utilizing, say, a mobile phone or a tablet and using the KVM software that GLI provide running as like Android or iOS, this allows you to just connect a keyboard, a mouse and a monitor directly into the standalone KVM Comet X device to manage locally. That means that you can create a standard standalone KVM interface to manage all 4, almost like an HDMI splitter in the old days, but this allows you to assume KVM full keyboard video mouse control and input output across all of the devices flick between it. I didn't see any physical buttons, I may have to review that. Also, as mentioned, as it's pretty much rack mount server focused in a big way, there is also PoE input. There's USB Type-C 5 volt, of course, but the fact it has PoE as well, lovely stuff. But obviously the more astute of you have probably already spotted that LCD there on the front. We'll focus here real quick on the Comet 5G. It has, I would argue, pretty similar sizing of a touchscreen full display there on the front. Now that is going to allow not only direct display, but also full touchscreen control. And almost certainly this is what you're going to be utilizing to flick between the different inputs there, between the HDMI outputs. I think I would have liked a physical button. not unlike the physical button I've seen on Gl.iNet's travel routers there, but still at least you're going to have that touchscreen option there that either one, you're going to be able to flick between the individual displays on that tiny little screen, but on the Comet X, or at the very least the ability to flick between primary, secondary, tertiary outputs. And of course the fourth one that I can't remember the name of, Quintile, who knows? Let me know in the comments. But nonetheless, that's still quite a nice thing to have. And we've mentioned with the LCD output there, allows you to add a passcode there for additional security. You can set up remote level access, such as their own good cloud service. But there's also support of zero tier, support of Tailscale, and then you've got Netbird as well. So again, they are slowly adding services, but still nonetheless, I know some of you are just going to rely on their own remote access service. And of course, on the local area network, you can bind it and restrict it to just that if you choose. Now, in terms of internal hardware, I will say this is one of the few areas when I saw this that I wasn't pumped and excited about. Because frankly, I really like this, and it's addressing some of the needs of a new line of KVMs for them to start getting these overseer devices, and I think this logic can hopefully be scaled up. But it's rocking out with a quad-core ARM Cortex processor and 1 gig of LPDDR RAM. Now, 1 gig on these has been standard for a while, but managing 4 interfaces, and particularly when these KVMs, by the way, can be managed by multiple users, user accounts that you create, I am wondering if 1 gig is going to be enough here. I think it probably is, but I've never tried to push one of these to manage 4 devices at once. Obviously, you're pathing into one at a given time, but I don't know if that 1 KVM is going to allow for multiple users to manage multiple different devices respective to their accounts. I've not experienced a Gl.iNet multi-overhead KVM device before. So 1 gig, I'm going to hopefully have one here in the studio at some point to see if that 1 gig is be enough, because it slightly worries me. 1 gigabyte there. The CPU doesn't bother me, if I'm honest. But another thing is the storage. The device is arriving with 64 gig of internal storage. Again, for firmware updates if you're going to be rolling back, for ISO and repair disks that you may wish to mount. And that's all great stuff. And 64 gig, I would argue, is actually a pretty reasonable amount for just storing a bunch of ISOs on there. Because they're not going to be Blu-rays, but they're going to be like DVDs. So each one, you know, image-wise is going to take up 4 gig there or thereabouts. But still, nonetheless, it's a shame that there isn't an SD card slot and there isn't support of something like a USB storage device. The USBs that are there all seem to be for KVM utilization, both locally and remotely, but still nonetheless, it's just that 64 gig being the roof on this. Once you cut it up for each, you know, so that's allowing for 16 gigabytes of storage per server. And yes, if you've got 4 identical servers, maybe running high availability environments, something like that, you might have the same disks that are utilized by all of the servers. But some people might have different native OS sandbox type environments. They're different platforms, if you will, running different variations of Linux and stuff like that, where they may need their own recovery disks, their own driver disks. So 16 gigabytes per device feels a little tight when you can't expand the storage. And just having the option to have expanded the storage via USB, maybe that is something they'll add with the local USB ports. But at least for now, on paper, that storage, I get the cost of storage these days, may throttle things ever so slightly down the road. And as mentioned, I genuinely believe this is going to be the start of another new series of KVMs from this brand, because once you've nailed down the fundamentals, just like they've done with the singular use KVMs, from there you innovate, you scale up, you scale down, you go efficient, you go power user, you go up, you go down. However, in the case of this device and its scale out, there are features and facilities available on the other KVMs in their lineup which aren't currently available in this device. Probably the most glaring one is the 5G failover. The Comet 5G, again, a lot of work went into those antennae to incorporate not only the local antennae, but remote, LTE support for you to take advantage of a SIM card there for that failover option there, if I get the focus to work correctly. This doesn't support that. Now, there's no mention of it's going to support like a USB dongle to add that facility, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next iteration of this device, and by next I just mean the expansion of the portfolio, will end up rolling out the 5G alternative, because presumably this device has already been way into production when this hit the shelves not a long time ago. But that is everything we know right now about the Comet X KVM. I don't know the pricing, I don't know the release or availability. I hope it's going to be soon, because I know this is rolling out on Kickstarter very, very soon, and they've been updating this with a few bells and whistles, bells and whistles, I should say, of rolling out this direct one cable USB Type-C KVM. So whether this is going to be the focus point or they'll be rolling them out relatively close to each other, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I'm really pleased with where things are going now with this lineup, because they've already nailed down the fundamentals in terms of software and hardware, and to see them expanding that into central hub devices that can be multiple used, the only thing left for me is this brand hopefully one day merging travel routers and KVMs into something beautiful. But that's a pie in the sky, something for the future. Thank you so much for watching. There's a link below to an article on this, as well as links to purchase other KVMs from Gl.iNet, both on their own website and Amazon below. So if you are thinking of getting hold of one, and you want to support what we do, and you're going to go to those shops anyway, make sure those three things are true, please use those links in order to get hold of a KVM from Gl.iNet below. It results in a small commission coming here to the channel, and it allows me and Eddie to keep doing what we do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.